Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. In anticipation of the wonderful event of our daughter's birth in just 2 weeks, my husband and I planned ahead so that I could spend the first year of her life at home with her, enjoying the joys of motherhood and breastfeeding. In anticipation of this event, we managed to save the sum of $26,000 and also took into account that my husband's income at his job is $3,000 monthly at a rate of $23 per hour. Expenses for the year since we found out we were pregnant were estimated at about $46,000. Her desire to intrude into our family life made me anxious and uncomfortable. She tried to convince us to purchase a home together to, she claimed, help raise our grandchild. My husband, weighing the pros and cons, was leaning toward the idea, but I was adamantly opposed to the decision. Despite my rejection, my mother-in-law did not miss the opportunity to interfere in our lives when she considered it necessary for her son. She not only pampered him with attention, bringing home his favorite dishes, which were enough for several days, but also invariably reminded him of maternal care, arranging surprises in the form of dinners 2 to 3 times a week with the phrase, "I know you miss Mom's kitchen." In addition, she continued to give my husband symbolic gifts that emphasized the bond between mother and son, thus strengthening their unbreakable spiritual union. Aware that my husband would never wear jewelry, my mother-in-law still insists, assuring me otherwise and cloaking herself in maternal concern. As if there are things beyond my comprehension. When I object, saying he won't accept them, she doesn't take my words seriously. None of the jewelry she gave him has ever found its place on him. Her attitude toward her son sometimes seems mixed up with how she would treat her spouse, demanding his attention at all hours of the day and night, eager to pull him from our home to hers. Once he is at her place, she treats his visit as an excuse for a date between mother and son, whether it be going to Denny's or other activities. And when she comes to visit, she expects the same gestures of attention from me as if I were her attendant, trusting in my hospitality. I realize my words may seem confusing, but this woman's behavior has gone too far. Interestingly, before the pregnancy, my mother-in-law and my husband had little contact, but as soon as the news of the addition to the family became known, she seemed to cling to both of us, revealing her affection in the most unexpected and, at times, intrusive ways. And even though we are both over 30 and we are quite independent adults, her behavior calls into question this fact, adding absurdity to an already difficult situation. My mother-in-law made efforts to convince my husband to change his life path, to quit his smoking habit, to look for a new job, and eventually to join her at her workplace in a medical rehabilitation center so that they could spend more time together. I strongly disagreed with this proposal for several reasons. First, the proposed wage of $13 an hour was a full $10 less than what he was earning before, which would automatically cut his monthly income almost in half. This situation went against our family arrangements and plans, especially since I would have to go back to work to make up for the loss of income. Moreover, the job at the medical rehabilitation center involved a bi-weekly paycheck with no benefits for the first year, unlike the full benefits package he could expect at his previous job. My husband shared with me that he did not want to work alongside his mother and that I could care less. However, just last night I found out that he quit his job and applied for a job at the same medical center where his mother works. His hiring was expedited thanks to his mother's surety bond. When I heard about this, I did not hide my disappointment and asked him directly about the reasons for this decision. In a fit of bewilderment, I asked him what prompted him to take such a decision. He replied that his mother, an aging woman, had expressed a desire to spend more time with him, while she still had the opportunity, despite the fact that she was only 61 years old and quite healthy. After a night of reflection, I came to the conclusion that I could not accept this. In the morning, I told him that I cannot continue to live this way. I refuse to submit to the demands of a woman who is unwilling to respect our boundaries. I am not going to please a man who cannot gain independence from his mother, much less a woman who flatly refuses to give her son his freedom. I announced that I would take $23,000 of the $26,000 I had saved and try to make a life for myself, suggesting that he move back in with his mother. His surprise at my determination was great. He even called me reckless for not seeing the importance of his desire to spend time with his aging mother. Despite the fact that he allows her to destroy our shared world, I remain in place as if chained. Deep down, I realize my foolishness, but still, dear, carry out your plan. Pack up the child's things, take the necessary funds with you, and leave immediately with the child to where you see your future. I accept your decision on the division of property. Forgive me, but I'm just a weak human being whose decisions sometimes seem bizarre and ridiculous. Having your pay cut in half and losing your benefits for a year is a big blow to us, especially in the US, where even a short hospital stay during labor can cost at least $20,000. Not to mention the cost of postpartum and baby checkups in the first year. I am shocked at my decision to forego medical benefits, not realizing what is wrong with me. My amazement reached a climax when my wife asked for a divorce after my decision that drastically changed our lives, despite her urging me not to. I couldn't agree with her, and I now realize that this is not the act of a decent husband and father. Spending extra time with my mom while making minimum wage and paying child support is crazy, but that is the reality I found myself in. His mother-in-law, with her persuasive skills, forced him to voluntarily choose a path that brought him and his entire family to financial ruin. Thus, he began to feel vulnerable and totally dependent on her, unable to open up to his full potential as a person. She, like a narcissist, made him dance to her tune. I don't want to blame the victim, because perhaps throughout his life his mother-in-law raised her son in such a way that he was only an extension of her. However, it seems incredible how many adult children allow themselves to be manipulated to the point where their marriages are crumbling before their eyes. "You're a fool, you have a job to do, just accept it," I told him. I insisted that he go back to work despite all the obstacles. "Marriage does not tolerate indifference," I repeated, urging active problem-solving, communication, and even therapy, no matter the cost. I am convinced that being a single mom is not only a challenge, but in a way, it's also freedom. It's definitely better than being tied to someone who has never been able to break free from the shackles of motherhood and become independent. Next story. I am 33 years old, female, and have a cousin who is 32. From an early age, she always tried to compete with me, but this game of superiority never interested me. Our lives resembled some kind of meaningless tournament. We applied to the same university, but she was not accepted and ended up going to another institution. She claimed that this institution was better, but I didn't care. I was even glad we didn't have to study together, as I was tired of putting up with these childish arguments. Time passed and now we only meet at family events. I had a son last year, and we gave him a common name that a lot of people have and is not exclusive. Last month, my cousin also gave birth to a boy. When she and her husband announced the pregnancy, they announced that they were having a son, but stubbornly kept the name they chose for him a secret. I didn't pay much attention to their keeping the baby's name quiet. Perhaps they wanted to feel more important by making it a grand announcement, or perhaps they had chosen an unusual name and feared judgment from our family. When I asked about the name again, my sister said that they chose to keep it a secret, even from their parents. I merely replied, "Okay," and left it at that. However, last month when she gave birth, I was stunned. She gave her son the same name as my baby. I was overcome with shock. I couldn't understand why they kept the name hidden and didn't warn me beforehand. Not that I claim any copyright to this name, but I wish they had shown some basic courtesy by saying something like, "We know your child already has this name, but we like it very much." After all, that's the kind of basic courtesy I would expect even from a coworker or neighbor, let alone friends or family. If I had known that they intended to give their child the same name as us, my reaction might have been different. When I discussed this with my mom, she thought I was exaggerating, saying that everyone has the right to name their children whatever they want. I agree with that, and I think my offense is not that they chose the same name. In a way, it's even flattering, but the fact that they kept it a secret makes me wonder. The only reason I can see is that they knew it would cause resentment and wanted to avoid explaining or risk me voicing my disagreement and asking them to choose a different name. My anger at my cousin is strong, and now when someone mentions our son's name, I don't know who they are talking about. For now, I refuse to call his son by his first name, addressing him as a baby or toddler. I know it's wrong, as the poor child has nothing to do with it, but I can't say that name and not think of my child. Perhaps I am still offended by the baby competition and my judgment is clouded by it. I'm here to figure out for myself if I'm being a fool. I think I'm placing too much importance on this situation. In our culture, children are rarely given middle names and their last names are different. My reaction to the coincidence of names seems excessive because I only see this cousin a couple times a year and her child is rarely mentioned in my conversations. Despite my assurances to the contrary, I can't shake the feeling of resentment toward my cousin and her choice. I named my child a common name myself, and now, like Pikachu in shock, I wonder if someone else did the same. It's funny, but also sad at the same time. What will happen when this innocent child grows up and realizes my offense? How will I feel if my son brings home a friend with the same name? I need to get over myself and realize that a name is just a name and my reaction to it shouldn't affect my relationship with my child. No, I'm not an idiot, but I should work on my attitude. My distaste for my cousin's choice of baby name seems misplaced, but it seems like it was her goal to hurt me by using secrecy as a weapon. And unfortunately, she accomplished hers. However, there may be a solution in playing with words and rethinking the situation. I can start referring to my child as Big Harry and her baby as Little Harry, showing acceptance of the situation with a dose of irony. I can approach my cousin with a statement about how glad I am that she admires my son so much that she decided to name her baby after him. By showering her with an avalanche of kindness and sincerity, I can demonstrate surprise and gratitude, turning the situation into a game. I can also invite friends and family to comment on her social media posts, expressing admiration for this decision. If she denies it, I can smile and, with a wink, say, "Okay, let's keep this as our little secret." This will allow me to maintain my dignity and grace in this weird name game, showing that I am being above the situation rather than letting it dominate me. Now I want to tell a different story. My daughter's third-grade classroom has a challenging atmosphere. Despite the fact that my daughter is a wonderful child, the class has a difficult situation. Behavioral problems and lack of respect are common. My daughter's teacher impresses me as an experienced teacher with excellent management skills, but even she faces difficulties in this group. One Friday, on the eve of Martin Luther King Day, and the 3-day weekend was marked by a particularly tense event. A teacher attempted to tell her students the story of MLK's life by gathering them on the carpet in her classroom, but was met with extreme resistance and disrespect. At the end of the school day, she posted a lengthy and emotional message on a platform to communicate with parents, where she described the behavior as the worst she had encountered in more than a decade of teaching. She expressed her frustration and surprise at how incredibly disrespectful, rude, and disinterested the students were, showing a complete lack of responsibility. The teacher said that because of the students' intemperate behavior, she was forced to interrupt the reading of a story about Martin Luther King. The rowdy behavior in the classroom reached such a level that several children had to be sent to the school office. The classroom lights were turned off and the children were ordered to put their heads down on their desks, but many continued to make noise, laughing, and whispering. The situation escalated to the point where the teacher had to call in a staff member from the office. My daughter shared additional details with me. One boy was sent to the office for making an inappropriate joke about MLK's death. Another had to leave the classroom for a strange dance during reading, and yet another student was sent away because of a physical incident. The teacher confirmed what my daughter said when my wife spoke to her. My daughter was well behaved, unlike most of her classmates who continued to be disorderly and rude. The following week, the teacher announced consequences for the entire class. On Tuesday, the entire class spent recess standing against the wall to reflect on their behavior. The 3 boys I mentioned earlier returned to class, but the atmosphere was tense and full of expectation of change. The week following the incident was a period of increased work for the students. They received additional homework assignments related to the study of the life of Martin Luther King, which increased their normal workload by about 15 minutes in the evening. My daughter's class was supposed to have a Valentine's Day party where children traditionally create themed boxes, exchange gifts, eat candy, and enjoy music. However, the teacher announced that instead of the party, the students would be writing a social studies test. My daughter was saddened by this decision and complained about the injustice because she had behaved well. My wife supported her by expressing her dissatisfaction with the teacher's actions, which was uncharacteristic of our daughter. Yesterday, my daughter even expressed her desire to complain to the school principal. When I told her that her words reminded me of Karen's complaints and expressed support for the teacher for her determination and consistency in punishment, it made her angry. I tried to explain that life is sometimes unfair, but that it is important to be able to accept lessons and move forward, but this only increased her frustration. I understand your outrage, and I agree that this approach to punishment can cause resentment. After all, when I was a kid, I always hated this injustice. Why try to behave well if punishment will follow anyway? It seems like a lazy way to solve problems. If a teacher is unable to control her students, then the school administration should take action. Using homework as a punishment does not seem right to me. Your wife, who is defending her child who has been unfairly punished, is not Karen at all. Instead, I wonder why your daughter is losing her love for the school where she is punished for good behavior. Instead of agreeing with the teacher's methods, why not reward your daughter for her excellent behavior by having a family day? Maybe have lunch at the park or go to the local candy store. That would be fun for everyone. I don't see why you can't send the kids who have behaved well to a party, leaving the ones who misbehave in the classroom. In my state, taking recess away from kids is considered illegal. I would be outraged if my daughter's entire class was collectively punished while my child was in no way involved in the problem behavior. If the behavior problems in the classroom are so severe that the teacher is failing or not getting proper support from the administration, something is clearly going wrong. If 5 out of 30 kids in a class were misbehaving, or even more than half of the class, I would have moved my child to another school a long time ago. My next story. My sister and I grew up in an Asian immigrant family, raised in 2 cultures, Native Asian and American. I was always proud of our culture and tried to pass on its values to my children. However, my sister, to my regret, has completely abandoned our native culture. She has tried to assimilate into the American environment, refused to celebrate our traditional holidays, and even forbade our parents from involving their children in our culture. Recently, a major conflict erupted when she asked me to serve only American food during a family gathering. To me, preserving cultural traditions is important, and our relationship has been cold ever since. Our parents, who are still trying to stay connected, felt the blow when my niece, their granddaughter, decided not to invite them to her 16th birthday party. It was a big blow to them, especially given the importance of the coming-of-age ceremony in our culture. My parents are convinced that my sister is ashamed of her roots. When my sister called and asked if I would go to the celebration, I said no. Her upset intensified when I explained that her long-standing disregard for our indigenous culture could not help but lead to these consequences. She accused me of being stupid. In turn, I reflected on the fact that each of us may be acting foolishly, putting our feelings above all else. My sister's disregard for our family's culture is upsetting, but I also understand her right to choose her own way of raising her children. She seems to feel American and wants her children to grow up in that tradition. Refusing to participate in family cultural events because of resentment toward my sister is not fair to my niece, who is not to blame for the family discord. Perhaps you and your parents are misguided in your beliefs about your sister's reasons for abandoning her roots. Your words suggest that she may have been teased as a child for belonging to a different culture. If this is true, then perhaps in those moments when she most needed support, neither you nor your parents were able to support her. You make assumptions about her motives and feelings, but you didn't mention whether you discussed these issues with her directly. The same goes for your parents. Why not try to talk openly with her about her choices and feelings? It also seems hurtful that your parents refuse to celebrate an important event in their granddaughter's life just because it doesn't fit their cultural traditions. This emphasizes the importance of dialogue and understanding within the family in order to overcome differences and learn to respect each family member's personal decisions and preferences.